Hi, my name is Giselle Quiron. I am a curator based in Lima, and I'm here joined with Gianine and Flora. We're here happy to talk to you about the project that we've been preparing for over a year that we sadly could not present as an exhibition because of COVID-19, but we're still working on it, and we're more than happy. We're very thankful for ÚNA Fest for giving us this platform to talk about a little bit more about our work, what we've been preparing, and the wonderful work of Gianine and Flora, who I'm now gonna pass over so they can introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Gianine, and I'm an artist, and I'm now living and working in Lima, in Peru.
Hey, I'm Flora. I'm originally from the Scottish borders, and I'm living and working in Glasgow at the moment.
That's great, thank you. So I just wanted to start by introducing this wonderful team. We've been working separately, based in Glasgow and Lima. We've been communicating like this over these platforms, these digital platforms, for quite a long time. But first, Gianine and Flora actually met whilst being a student in an MA course for art production. So I just wanted Gianine and Flora to tell me a little bit more about that, how you both met, what people thought of your work, what commonalities you saw, especially in your final MA degree show. So I'm going to pass you over to Gianine.
Well, I went to study at Scotland, and it was like a really like a decision that I made for going really far away from Peru, trying to have a different approach to rethink my work and also myself in a way. And then I met amazing people and artists, and one of them was Flora. And one of the things that was really, really nice, it was that we were like chatting a lot all the time and having a lot of like conversations about our works, but also about like the ways we see and we understand the relationship with our surroundings and with processes. And we were like having like, I don't know, I felt that I have like a lot of like echo on our works and the things that we were like investigating on. And yeah, it was like kind of like a really nice connection that we kept and continue until now. The final show was, I think, that one of the keys of this process where we saw and we felt that our works were sharing the same, I don't know, kind of way of trying to focus on the elements and to the microcosmos of the things itself. Yeah.
So nice to meet Gianine, and we totally naturally gravitated towards each other. I think people saw similarity in our experimental approach in the studio, with the outcome of working with the materials quite a lot of the time unknown. I think we were making like instinctive kind of decisions, working with stuff and talking to each other at the same time. So it was really nice to chat through things with each other all the time. And we have like a really common interest in like basic cultural practice, I think, and human behavior linked to environment. And that culture that arises from people's like deep relationships with like land. And that was so nice to meet somebody from such a different background, but that we seem to have similar values and interests in our work.
Yes, I was really happy when Gianine called me to curate your work and continue working on these commonalities and these similar threads, because already in your final degree show there were so many share practices and share as well installation manners of your work that I just completely understood why so many people over Glasgow told you that you should definitely continue working together. So just these are some pictures of the MA show. I don't know, Jenny, if you want to talk to me a little bit more about this.
Well, this was a video installation that I present. It was part of the works that I presented in the final show. And this one in particularly had like this kind of like focus on just the sand going like from one side to another and falling from the top. And I wanted to show the relations and the cycles and time as the matter that I was like investigating at that time, and the relation with the land and the body and itself, and yeah, the way it was supposed to connect with the viewer or the person who was there is that you have like it was a really long moment of just like connecting with these grains falling and just like dancing in connection with the body, and that kind of like process of attention and long attention to the sun. It was something that it was like really an echo to these other works that Flora also was presenting at the same time.
Yes, you can definitely feel the contemplative like manner that you need to like pay attention to your works. I don't know, Flora, you want to say something?
Yeah, it was that kind of like slowness and kind of gradual way that you came into the spaces, and the kind of atmosphere really changed in each of the spaces, and it was a very kind of distilled, almost like vision of something like close up but also really far away, like you were saying before, Gianine. And it was like really present, all of the material in our spaces, like it was things from the world, like in the spaces that you're reacting to really closely.
So already we're seeing a lot of commonalities, and you guys decided to work together on this continued process of works. But before we dwell into that, I wanted first for you to explain and tell us a little bit more about what you've been working recently and the work process that you both have. And I wanted to start with Gianine, telling us about her work based in Cajamarca, which is really interesting.
Well, that was like an action, actually, a work that I did last year in Cajamarca, in a residency that I was invited, a Hawapi residency that I was invited to participate. And what we did is that we went to camp for like over like almost 10 days to Maxima's Acuña place, land. The Maxima Acuña is a leader from Cajamarca, that she's in a battle, in a legal battle with mining that is trying to pull her away, she and her family, from the land that she owns, because of interests that they have, like on the gold that it's like underneath the land. But like going there and working, it was like a really conflict moment, or like really hard to approach to the topic. And I think that I didn't want to I was asking myself questions about the work itself, and the work and how there are like different kinds of processes that as humans are in relation to the earth and to the environment that we do, and that they're not completely all this the system and the processes, they are not completely shown, and they're like kind of like invisible in a way. I'm talking a little bit about like agriculture in a way, how we can have it for granted. For example, that we go to the grocery store, like here from like I live in the city, so I can go to the grocery store and take some, like, for example, potatoes or vegetables, and I have it like for a meal, and I have it them for granted, and I don't, maybe sometimes we don't think about like the work and the labor that it's like behind all these processes to get in the food from actually the work and the land and the connections that we have. And I think that sometimes I feel that happens the same in the processes that the way, for example, that I work, or like a lot of artists works, looking at processes and looking closely to materials and all the investigations that we have behind. And I wanted to show kind of like these parallels of like the invisibility of labor, of work. So what I present is that I started working like for 6 or 7 days around like on the hill, on one of the hills next to the camp and to Maxima Cunha and family's house. And while it was planting season, so they were working. They are like in this picture, they are on the right side, working, planting. And I did what I knew that to do. Like what I know to do is like working as an artist to try to make a drawing on the land, on the hill. So I was working there, just working and thinking about the process and questioning myself and writing a lot about like those processes and thinking about all the like in a context like what I was in that moment, like in that area of conflict, and what's the point or the power or the significance of making art, or how can art can be like engaged with this type of problematics. And at the same time, I think that that's something that it's completely that makes a lot of logic also to asking it now in the context that we're living, that what's the I don't know, like I don't think that art has to have like a function itself, but what's the logic or the relation that art can have, like in these kinds of situations that are like more complicated as a human beings, right? So yeah, that was kind of like the process that I wanted to show, and was the work itself, was the process itself, and I wanted to put that really upfront to in those days and those moments.
Thank you, Gianine. Yes, I can really feel the respect that you have for different work processes in general in Peru. I feel that the very same idea and the very same attitude that you have with respect towards agricultural process in this action, I feel it's very important to the project that we're producing and to the commonalities of your shared work and the ethic that you both share. And I feel that's also really present in the work that you've been carrying out recently, Flora, in investigating glass making in Scotland. I don't know if you can tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, so the most recent body of work that I've been working on was as part of RSA Residencies for Scotland, where I undertook a residency that was split between North Uist, near to Hebrides, and Caithness in a glass studio there, Northlands. And it came from a work that I did as part of the original show that you showed a picture of earlier on. I cast lenses out of pieces of sea glass, which I found. And it was this process that I was originally really interested in, the light refracting and projecting through the sea, discovering this sea glass, which had been worn down by sand, which is part of itself, this kind of circular process. And I recast these through lost wax casting, which is a really ancient type of casting. So it was remelting this product of a really industrialized process in a kind of very ancient and small scale way. I found out that seaweed was used in the manufacture of glassmaking in Scotland, and it was a really massive part of the economy in the Highlands and Islands. Lots of people were cleared out of the central areas of land in the 18th centuries, early 19th century, and they were forced to the coasts, and a large part of their income came from burning of the seaweed to make kelp ash, which was used in glass-making industries and soap. At the time, the Napoleonic Wars were happening, so they couldn't import this kind of Spanish barilla, which is what they used previously for it. And in the glass-making, it's used as a flux. So the sand and the ash, it allows it to be worked at like lower temperatures, and it allows it to be formed into different shapes. When I was beginning to the project, I usually begin looking at photographic and film archives. And I was looking at the Moving Image Archive, National Libraries of Scotland, and there was some amazing footage in there, mostly of industrialized processes like dredging. So boats that would go by and take up like all the floor of the sea to get the seaweed, which they would use for the process. And so I was looking further into the photographic archives, and I found one particular way of cutting the seaweed with a hand sickle, like Gianine was using in her work, where they cut the seaweed from the bottom at low tide, and then it floats to the surface, and they bring it in with a rope. So there's this kind of form that you like drag ashore. And it was on like a huge scale, but this was allowed to be done like by like one person working over an afternoon and bringing in a huge amount of seaweed. And I found this really inspirational like starting point for me, to find out how the material was harvested and industrialized. Was just an interesting link and relationship between materials and how people thought of materials in their landscape. I think traditional processes define people's relationship to their landscape around them. And I'm quite interested in making people see materials in different ways as something kind of in themselves. And the fact that to make links between things and to draw attention to the fact that everything's related, things never go away. The glass that was in the sea has been recast and transformed into another thing that can be looked through for a different function or as an object in itself. And so this reformation and transformation through the process is a kind of way of understanding the materials and the role that they play like within the world.
Thank you so much, Flora. Yes, definitely. And that idea of interconnection towards different processes and tradition, it's really important in both of your work, and you can really feel towards the respect that you have towards a cultural landscape and historic processes within that landscape, within the communities that practice it. And I just wanted you both to tell me a little bit more about what you thought of each other's like processes, because they're both really interesting and we have talked about it so many times.
Yeah, well, I feel that it's like a really nice and excitement, like every time that we get together with Flora and talk about our works or sharing what we are doing, like in like, you know, like each one in our like countries, like really far away from each other, and we then I don't know, we find ourselves like in this type of environments around working and trying to find like the connections with our environments in different contexts, and then they have like so many similarities, and most of the times when we talk also we have like these connections on what like little, sometimes there are like some like little things, and sometimes they're like huge things, and then it's interesting to see how our work sometimes like interconnects and sometimes like just go in different directions, but the back is like really yeah, I don't like connected. I don't know how to explain, but it's an echo that we have like all the time that we work, and it's like we get really excited about it.
Yeah, every time I see like a new piece of your work, I'm like, oh, it inspires me in a different way, you know? It's really lovely. And it's when I was watching that kind of footage of you like working in the field, I thought about the way that we like, it's really contemplative in the act of going out and making the work like outside, re-experiencing this thing that people have experienced. Like when I went and cut some seaweed as well when I was like in the area, and just that feeling of like working as part of the work as well.
Yes, and I feel like that's really key to your understanding of time as well. The way that you go into these places and into these landscapes to understand this process that has been carried out. It's a tradition in the place for so long. I feel there is some kind of way that in your work you stretch and you manage to see time in such a microscopic way that but also it's collapsed. So it allows us to see the change and the permanence of material over time. And I feel that's really present in Gianine's investigation about rock formation. You can tell us a little bit more about that, Gianine.
Well, yeah, like I'm interested in the relation and the interactions with matter and the change the elements of nature, especially like rocks, how they change, not like in both in the natural processes, but also like in relation to human or industrial interventions in nature. I think that being aware of like the natural and geological process in nature makes me realize like our relations to nature is most of the time neglected, and I don't understand how like most of the times they're like this kind of like put in like other ways of looking at these processes makes me realize how important to connect and to understand these other processes, to understand also another types of temporalities, that they're like not the type of temporalities that we have as or that we know from the dominant culture, but there are like another ways of seeing and connecting and process time and understanding spatial time, or like trying to focus on this on those areas and processes in another ways. Looking at rocks and trying to hear them, it's now what I'm like trying to investigate. How can I make them sound from them and with them also. Basically it's like I'm experimenting with like a little bit of sound and like microscopes and trying to see them closely. I'm really interested in those cycles that has another mood of time and another speed. And I feel that that kind of understanding of those geological processes of the rock itself, it's a way of learning of another temporalities, as I just said, and also it's a way of like trying to materialize in a way time and process.
Flora, in your work is also time really important in the way that you try to grasp these different temporalities and this kind of longing for cyclic as well processes. Can you tell us a little bit more about that as well?
Well, I always found that I've been originally studying photography. I've always had like light as the center of my practice and the center of my like interest. And I mean, I like this gradual changing of light and becoming aware of time passing. While I was in Caithness, this is a picture of inside one of the grey cairns of Campster, which these kind of prehistoric gathering houses, and they're like burial chambers as well. They've got this really narrow way of going in where you have to kind of crawl through. And at the end, there's a kind of chamber. These were kind of like lined up I don't know if you've seen like previous ones that are lined up for light on various kind of solstices and things like that. This one in particular had this amazing plate at the back, which was like a kind of photographic slide or something like that the light comes through and projects onto at certain times. I was really interested in it when I went to see it, and I thought about the way that I was casting the glass was through these very small apertures into these molds, and it was kind of akin to crawling into these cairns and like being inside. It was like I was inside a mold for one of the lenses or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was amazing kind of atmosphere.
Nice.
That sounds so fascinating, especially the idea of like, and I really feel that in all your work, like even though the body sometimes in the less performative kind of work, it's not present explicitly. You can really feel the corporeal aspect of it in every single one of the pieces. You can really feel the process, and I feel like that's some of the most exciting stuff in your work, right? And we talked a really long time about time and capturing time, especially the photographic aspect of trying to reveal time in the very same matter of photography, but also how that translates in other of your works. And I just wanted you both to the same thing that we've been doing, trying to talk about each other of your work in this respect.
I really love every time that I see Flora's like work and pictures, and every time that she taught me what she's working on, because I feel that the way she give that the moments and the process and the time itself to be part of the work, as showing and making it like me as a viewer to connect with the time-based situations and changes, and some of the objects that carries a lot of like this history and this process and materiality itself that tells a lot of in relation to the surroundings where they came from, but also the relation to herself and to the way she connects. Also, these amazing connections that she makes about like this thing that she just said about like being inside of this kind of like making this parallel with this space that she found and the molds of like the glass, and I felt that it's like trying to become like these materials or elements that it's really I don't know, I find it like really like amazing, and that's one of the things that I think that and we connect a lot, and on this like the amazingness that we have about like just how rocks tell us about like time and histories, and how like all the materials and the elements go and tell us these histories in relation to the planet, but also with the relations with other beings and humans and non-humans also.
Yeah, I love the idea, like when you were telling me about your research that you were doing about this place where you were trying to like listen to the sound of the earth, like through these rocks, and the sound of like extended periods of time, and how that was like, it just makes you like feel in such a particular way. It's like amazing to slow people down to try to listen to these things that are actually really quite abstract, like sounds, and you're kind of like, there's a space for people to make that kind of like connection for themselves at the end as well, about like the experience that's like left open. It's really nice because these like recordings and the way of recording, like from vibration, it was like the sounds from the work before, it has this kind of like resonance through cultural things, but also it's like a kind of perspective thing, like a wide perspective over the time, but it's also in a way you can experience. I think it's really interesting and abstract.
Yes, I think you both are really I don't know what I found in your work when watching it, like closely to them. You both are so generous with your viewer, in the sense that your process is very meticulous and you want to show that to your audience. So they draw their own conclusions and perspective on how to deal with this new information that they have, with a long reflections of time and different process of materials and the histories that they carry within it. So I really like that generosity in your work. And I think we have some footage and video material that we can share with everyone, so that they become closer to this kind of like long periods of time and process and delicacy of process that you both are researching. So I'm gonna stop sharing. So I think, sorry, Flora, you can start by sharing your footage, and then Gianine.
Looking to the sea, I saw it as a giant lens, seeing the convex curve as the horizon.
It's actually interesting because I was filming this in the back garden, like during the lockdown, and I had all these objects from the residency that I'd made, and I didn't know how I was going to show them or what I was going to do with them. And this was a pot melt of all of the scraps of glass that I had at the end, and I just basically melted them down over like hours and hours and hours and hours. And we cut it in half. So the pot, the crucible that it was cast in, so that we could see the inside of the bits of glass. And then when you wet it, you get this incredible like vision into the pieces of glass, so that you get like a depth to it.
It looks like a geological strata of like, like earth also, of time and of settlements of like things. But I love the way it goes, like, and it gets drier, and it's like you can get this sense and this I don't know, the flavor, like I can taste, like this part is like I felt it like amazing when I saw it the first time, and it was like completely I don't know, I was like, I love it. I just love it. Like it connects me in a way, I don't know, like with all these processes that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's so sensorial. Like the first time I watched it, like I got goosebumps just by seeing the change of like the dryness. Like I felt like in a way I was watching live, and that was really magnificent. Gianine, if you can show us your video.
Yeah. I was like kind of like working on like I was like trying to plan the space that I was working on, and it was like really funny how I wanted to control the work that I was going to do, and how I wanted to plan everything, and I was there like just like being like put out from the wind and the itchy that was like really itching me all the time, and I was like really like with no a lot of like oxygen because it's really high altitude, and like and I was thinking about the absurdity of me thinking that as I've been working in the city, that I can go there and work in the same way with the same kind of like rules for a way of saying it, and it was like that was really really funny, and it was I like that absurdity of putting myself in that way for at the beginning of the days. At the end of the days, I was like the last days I was like really really tired, and my body was like really really suffering, but it was like I think that was part of like all the process, like it was like mentally and emotionally process based, and it was like really important also to have like those moments. But there were like this the last day that I was there, I just wanted to I was writing and feeling like in this moment of in the sun, like by myself, like trying to understand a little bit what I was doing and what was the why I put myself in that position, like questioning myself a lot about the work that I do and how I do it, because there are a lot of like easiest ways of doing some things, I don't know, and then I put myself in this like rough kind of like positions a lot of the time. So yeah, but it was nice.
I wanted to continue this conversation. As you both mentioned, you have a close proximity to plants and the traditional processes. So I wanted to kind of position that in this current debate about sustainability and what sustainability means to each of us, and how our understanding of sustainability in our work can help not only expand the sense of sustainability, but also bring us closer to that definition, or to a different definition of sustainability, and not feel it like such a far away fight, as more as something that we all need to carry out in our personal lives.
So I should go?
Please.
Yeah. Well, I think that both of our works pay attention, close attention to different processes of transformation of matter that are involved in cycles of the earth, that we use to show like elements that talks by themselves. The narrative itself and the ephemeral component that our works have, and they're like most of the time capturing the moment and having that microcosm aspect of these elements are like a way of understanding and trying to get engaged with the surroundings, and it's a way of like thinking of the sustainability of things and the work itself, and how we feel about the connections and the transformation of energy in a way that are involved in those processes.
It's like the drawing attention to the interconnectedness and the different like conception of time puts you completely differently in relation to your environment. And when you're coming across like these materials and processes in a really direct, experiential way, it means more to you, and you realize the subtlety of like the relationship between them, and how it changes in sustainable way, or and how different relationships are so subtly grounded that a tiny thing can completely change them. I remember talking to a conservationist when I started doing the seaweed project about the really tiny relationships that the land and the sea have with yeast, because it's mainly like water that invades like the land, and there's these pools of water everywhere. And it was this really subtle, the carbon in the plants fixed the waters, and then the land like fixed the sea. You know, there's this like interconnected relationship going on. And this like hand harvesting was preserving biodiversity. And it was something that I didn't like initially really think of as like, oh, it's a sustainable thing that you're doing. But all of these ways that you like draw attention, like Gianine drawing attention to the work and the relationship of all the plants in those environments that are like surviving on with no water, they're just surviving on that landscape. It just like informs you in all these different ways that make up a kind of like new way of thinking about environment, I think.
Yes, a more proximate way, definitely as well. I think sometimes we tend to think like new, and I'm putting this like a new discourses or new political discourses, like in a way have no relationship with our daily life, and they're actually way closer than we imagine them to be. And they have to be carried out in a way. It's kind of research about local processes in order to unearth them or bring attention to them or draw them closer. But the fact that we are actually quite close in geographic perspective really puts things or gives things an urgency that we really need to like look closer to them, and that makes your work, both of your work, so important. I feel at this time and in this current day and age. And I just wanted to end with that thought, in the sense that Gianine drew out at the beginning, that especially at this time with this pandemic going on, this kind of research onto local processes and sustainable processes that are very much embedded in traditions of different places are very, very important to investigate, research, and appreciate, because our current lifestyle manner has completely been completely a result of what we're living out today. Clearly, economic and social structures are not helping at the time. So I just wanted to say thank you. And yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance to say goodbye.
Thanks, Una, for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Una, and thanks, Giselle and Flora, for this nice conversation.
Yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Una, for inviting us. And yeah, thank you, Gianine and Flora, for having such wonderful work. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.